Karl Lornie, hello, how are you?
Hello, Gary.
Can we see you behind the mask?
There
There you
you
are.
go.
You are running a band, probably the only band that is working regularly on a cruise ship in the
Yeah,
world.
yeah. I think we are the only show that's actually on, full stop. I mean, they have got their production team are in doing some shows as well, but they brought us in, and it's totally different. I mean, you know, the differences for everyone is unbelievable. And I think until there's a vaccine, forget about all the fly-ins and fly-outs. We've done an initial 10-week contract, and we arrived at the ship on August the 12th, and we're currently on the MSC Grandiosa. So
It's a big
and
ship.
yeah, it is a big ship. We have about 5,200 passengers, but we're currently been sailing with about 12 to 1,400 passengers.
So you say there's a capacity for 5,200, but you've been generally sailing with about between 1,000 and 1,500, something like that?
Yeah, around about 12, averaging about 1,200.
And is that because that's all they can sell, or is that because they're limiting it to that, like a third or so of what they can really take?
Yeah, that's right. They're limiting the numbers right down to about a third.
Or a quarter, yeah.
I think we can go up. We have got capacity to go up, but obviously the problems we have is because the different countries have got different limitations about where we can go. So basically, we're just based out of northern Italy. Our home port is Genoa, and the reason they picked Genoa is so people from Europe can come get to the ship from like Germany, Switzerland, France, etc. So,
the first thing I want to know is that are all are guests welcome from any country, or are they putting restrictions on?
there's restrictions at the minute. There's only Schengen region guests who are allowed on the ship.
Okay, so tell me, what's it like I mean, first of all, from the experience of a guest on the ship. I mean, because this is fascinating, because this is really a little peek into the sort of short-term future, isn't it, for all of us, really?
Yeah.
I think this is the only cruise ship in the world that's actually working, the large cruise ship that's actually working in a sense the way that we would expect. So from a guest's point of view, what's the experience like for them? How are things different to a normal cruise?
Right, there's lots of one-way systems in everything. I mean, they've always been high on sanitation, and we always joke with the washy, happy song, but it's everywhere. Every bar you go into, every restaurant, every dining, all the buffet restaurants are still there, but it's not self-service anymore. You go in there, you get handed your tray, you go down the line and say, "Well, I'd like such a thing," and they plate it for you and give you an individual plate. You have to wear a mask everywhere in indoor spaces. And obviously at the bar, you can take it off, but everything is now restricted. It's a bit like at home. If you go out to dinner or stuff, there'll be one table, and then there'll be a table that's clear, or two tables that's clear. So they're keeping you in your social bubble. Now it depends whether there's 2, 4, 6 of you. They have tables to facilitate your group. But,
so they're not putting people with other people. You stay with the people that you're traveling with. That's your bubble. That's your group, and you only stay with those people.
Yeah, and it's really quite weird because we're doing 2 venues on the ship, which I'll come to that in a minute. But I'll just give you the experience of going around the ship. The other thing you do when you're going into restaurants or buffet, you have to have your CPAS card scanned, and then they do your temperature. That's twice a day, and that's compulsory. You have to do that.
And what if you, as a guest, one of the great things about cruising is that you meet other people and you make new friends. I mean, I get if you go on as a couple and you meet some other people and you become pals, and I mean, can you say, well, we want to eat with these 4 people or with these 6 people, we want to join this group?
Yeah, you're allowed to do that, but I mean, before you get onto anything, the actually joining the ship, you have to have a COVID test 72 hours before you get here.
Guests as well.
Guests as well.
And that's when you say 70, it's not sooner, not later. It's kind of specifically 72 hours.
Up to 72 hours before, but it takes obviously a couple of days to get your results, doesn't it? So depending on where you are. But what then happens when you get to the ship,
And that's the, sorry, Carl, that's the PCR test with the thing up the nose, the little,
Yes. Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
it's horrible.
I have it. Yeah, it is not pleasant.
Not
Yeah.
the nicest thing, So you have to have that done, and you have your paperwork. Then you get to the ship. Now you have an allotted time, so they might say, "Okay, today, Mr. Williams, your allotted embarkation time is between 12 and 12:30 or 12:45." But when you get to the port, then you have another COVID test on for the ship,
Wow.
which you
The
get
same,
then.
the same thing. Oh, the PCR test.
Yeah, the same thing, and you get your results within 50 to 90 minutes.
Wow.
So, so the embarkation process now takes about 2 hours.
Right.
So what they've done there, so when you get obviously a positive test, you're fine, you can come on. There have been a couple of people who have turned
So
up.
what you said, a positive test, you
Well,
can come on.
yeah, they call it, that's in the paperwork, it's positive, you come back negative, basically. They've done the word in the wrong way around for some crazy
Okay,
reason.
let's be clear about that. So if you're positive,
Yeah,
I mean, if you're positive, they send you home, presumably.
yeah. Yeah, and they said if your corona test result is negative, you did not have the virus when this test is done, is what they mean. Then you can
Yeah,
come on.
right.
If you're
It's quite an
positive,
important small error
it
there.
is, yeah, it is. Yeah, I think it's lost in translation somewhere. But
So
when
have many people, due to your knowledge, tested positive at the ship and not been
yeah,
allowed on board?
I think there's been maybe half a dozen cases, and they just don't get in through the terminal. They just
And do
don't.
you find that once people are on the ship that they, the guests, is everybody sort of taking it seriously? I mean, I know they have to wear the masks anyway, but are people, how do they, how are they greeting? Are they doing the sort of
Yeah,
elbow
it's
thing or?
all the elbow
And
thing. It's
people
all.
aren't, it's like, I mean, people, they're not hugging and stuff. People are doing what people are treating it properly.
Yeah, properly. And obviously, you can see if it's a family, they're hugging and stuff and holding hands and doing the usual thing. But if they're greeting like anybody else, yeah, it's literally your elbow.
Yeah.
So it's, and then all the staff are advised to ask if anybody hasn't got their mask on, or when they're leaving, to put their mask on. On deck, it's a little bit more relaxed because obviously it's open air and you can.
So are you finding, I mean, because here I'm in Tenerife now, so in Spain for some time now, it's been, you have to wear your mask whenever you're out of the house. I mean, even if I'm walking the dog at 7 o'clock in the morning and there's nobody around, I have to wear my mask. But if I go into a restaurant, as soon as I sit down in the restaurant, I can take the mask off. I don't have to wait until the food's there. And if I go to a bar again, as soon as I sit down, I can take the mask off. And when I'm ready to go, if I need to go to the loo, I put the mask on. Same kind of deal on the ship, I guess.
Same kind of deal. But if you're on the open decks, I mean, you obviously if you're going in and out of the pool, you're not going to be wearing.
Of course. And well, it's the same here. Like if you're on the beach, you can take the mask off.
Yeah.
So I guess, I mean, we were actually staying in a hotel here in Tenerife a few weeks ago, just a little break. And once you're on the sun lounger, you take the mask off.
Yeah.
If you're going to walk, or if you want to go to the bar, you put it on. So it's,
yeah, exactly the same rules. But I mean, they really are, like, if you're going into the shops now, it's all, you sanitize, you have to go one way. They created one-way systems around everywhere, really. And they have on here, that most ships do, they have a pub, but it does have two entrances, but they direct you in through one door, out through the other. So it's all that. And there's a lot more waiter and waitress services, and they have a pad now, and they literally scan your card. So they don't even have to touch it. They can just scan your card and it brings up the drinks.
I see.
All of the stuff for, like, if you go to the dining rooms, all of the menus are on the app. So and that's free. You don't have to buy the Wi-Fi. You just go on to
you scan a little barcode.
Yeah, the MSC app, and it brings up the menus and whatever. And same, going to the theatre now is you book. I mean, it's all free, but you book to say, I want to go to the 8 o'clock show or the 10 o'clock show on this day. And in fact, what they are doing, they're giving people digital wristbands. I don't know if you've probably seen them on Royal Caribbean. They've had them a long time. Well, it's all over this ship now. Everyone has to wear one. And I think they've changed the technology in that it has got some sort of track and trace element, that if you have been in contact with anybody, that it will flash up and they can isolate wherever if they need.
And are you seeing times where people are being turned away from bars or restaurants because they're full, that they're at their COVID capacity?
It's not too bad on here because they have got blocked off seats. Like you'll see tables, but they won't have any. They remove the chairs, so you physically can't sit there. You know, so. But actually, it's an odd feeling because it's you. I mean, you've been on the big ships, you know what it's like, and when they're full, I mean, they're bouncing. And you've also been on the super duper luxury high end one where there's 500 passengers and 700 crew that look after you, and it feels like that. It feels like a bit more relaxed than more like a high end luxury, super luxury cruise as opposed to a luxury 5-star floating hotel party time like it is on usual all the big ships.
And have there been, to your knowledge, any outbreaks on board? Have there been any issues on board since August?
No, they had one crew member tested positive, but that was before he got on board, so he was denied boarding.
And how long are the cruises, Karl? Is it the same run each
7 days?
7-day cruise?
Yeah, we're running from Genoa and then we go down to Civitavecchia.
And so it's interesting because it's kind of amazing and great that there've been, to your knowledge, no cases where people, have since gone home and been home, for a couple of weeks and then contracted it. Because if they do the track and trace, it could have been nothing to do with the cruise ship. But if they're going to track and trace, well, have you been for the last couple of weeks, right? It's a risk, right?
It's a risk, yeah. But it seems to be. The new ships, because this is it's only a year old, the ship, so it's got the new air filtration systems and all the stuff. I mean, they're sanitizing everything, after the show. I mean, we call them the Ghostbusters because they do come in with the big packs and like that, hazmat, and they're cleaning everything, the team, constant.
Well, anybody that's familiar with cruise ships, particularly from a crew member's point of view, people working on ships, I mean, what do they call it on? They have different codes, don't they? I mean, if there's an outbreak of norovirus on a ship, it sounds a similar kind of setup to that with a few extras, doesn't it?
And they've I think with limiting the numbers as well, they've kept one of the whole decks clear. That's the isolation would if they needed it,
Right. So if there is if somebody tests positive and their group or the people that have the band tells them that they've been in contact with, they're going to go on their own deck.
Well, that's basically it. And then you're not allowed out of the room, and you just get food sent to your room and water and stuff. I mean, it's what they have done for the passengers, which is really, I thought it was really, really good idea. Actually, they've done when you book your cruise, they say, look, we're offering this COVID-19 insurance policy just in case you develop the virus and you won't be able to get on the ship. It's €18, so it's nothing in the big scheme of buying. So the families I know who did get the result that they couldn't board, they didn't lose the money. They said, look, when you're clear, you can come back to another cruise, but you haven't lost whatever it's cost you for your cruise. So
that's very encouraging.
That was pretty good. And but at the minute, they're keeping all of the numbers down. I think they said we would possibly go up to a maximum of 2,500 passengers. So,
Well, it's interesting because the world is watching MSC now, right? Everyone's looking to see how it works.
Yeah, I mean, that's the general consensus. Everybody wanted to be the first cruise ship to go back to work, and nobody wanted to be the first cruise ship to go back to work.
And what about you as an act? So we should explain. It's Beatles Celebration. You've been around a long time, 4 of you. I mean, were you super keen to go back, or did you have reservations? Because, I mean, it wasn't that long ago that the news was full of stories of crew members being stuck on board ships for weeks or months. I mean, it was a nightmare.
It's been really interesting. I mean, we did before we left the country, we had our COVID test. Just as an entertainer, and I think that for every entertainer in the business, the way it's going to be, there's not going to be fly in and fly out. You're going to have to be prepared to come for.
And we should explain, people watching this, if they're not sure, particularly Royal Caribbean, they have these fly-ons. So you fly out, you're on the ship for 2, 3, 4 days, you do the show and you get off again. But we think that's going to be a thing that is quite the opposite now, isn't it?
This is the total opposite. They came in and said, look, would we be able to come in to do the show? And basically we've replaced Cirque du Soleil. So we've come in to take over from Cirque du Soleil.
I bet you look good in the tights.
It's great. I'm flying around that room. It's
Same show.
yeah. It's really interesting because we're doing the theatre one night, but this is the way it's all changed. We're doing 6 nights a week. We're doing 12 shows a week. They're only, I mean, MSC is slightly different because the shows are only 35 minutes. So
Are they
it's about,
35 minutes because you're doing so many, or they were always 35 minutes?
they've always done 35-minute
And what would
shows.
they have normally, in normal times, how many shows would you be expected to do in a
Oh,
week?
probably, yeah, probably just, two, maybe.
Like on a normal,
Yeah, maybe,
normal
maybe,
line, you go
maybe
on for a
two,
week and you do a couple of shows.
yeah,
But
two different
now
shows.
it's
Yeah.
6 shows. So short shows, but still you're working every night. You're earning your money.
Yeah, we are. We're doing 12 shows a week. And we're going from the theatre to one end of this, doing that normal pros theatre, and then we're doing the carousel theatre, which is obviously was built in the round, which is great fun for us. I mean, I mean, literally, no matter where you are in the auditorium, you're only ever 10 rows from the front.
And what's the experience like for the guests? Because presumably there are a lot fewer people. You're never going to have a full house, so it's harder for you to get that kind of energy going that you're used
Yeah,
to.
I mean, yeah, it is. You kind of rock into it. It's slightly different for us because our shows, as you know, is always upbeat and full on, and kind of we're creating that Beatle experience. But what we've done, we've made it a little bit more visual, gone more down the video usage to make it more of a. I just had more production around it to give it a bit more stuff. But I'm going back to like the production cast are doing 3 shows a week, but they're doing 6 nights, so they're doing 2 nights of each show. That's what they're doing. And they're
Because
doing
obviously fewer people can come in to, I mean, there's fewer people on board, but fewer people can go into the theatre as well, right?
so that's the thing. They're limiting all the numbers for everybody. So it's weird, but in theory that's fantastic, but the practicality isn't. The cast production show starts at 8 o'clock. We start at 8:45, so they finish watching the other show and then haul down to the other theatre to watch us.
That's
So,
they've got to leg it.
well, yeah, but they do, and it's like oh, we'll go and see that. And as you know, with music, it's a different deal with music because you don't just buy music and listen to it once. People like that of listening to the song twice, 3 times, whatever, however many times. So they come into the show multiple times. You see,
They come over and over again. And you mentioned the production cast. Are they? So it's a full cast, and are you aware of sort of social distancing on stage with the cast, or does it look like a normal show?
It's like a normal show. You put in because you're all in your bubble.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's fine. I mean,
And is there a band on the ship, like an orchestra, that someone like me would work with?
No, they don't have the orchestra. The orchestra's gone now. So,
and do you think permanently, or just for now? Or I mean, what's your? I mean, of course you don't know this, but is your feeling that for acts like myself that they would have us on using backing tracks or smaller bands, or that would be a?
I think in the short term it will all be track. I think for everyone. But just because of the Schengen thing as well, because obviously we're from the UK and we're non-Schengen, and even though we're guests and all our status is guest status, we have to sign on as crew members. Just to
because I believe that if you're on the ship, anybody's on the ship for longer than 28 days, I believe you have to go on the crew, working on the ship, you have to go on the crew list anyway, right? Which means you've got to go to the trouble and the expense of getting the medical, a special medical.
Well, but they want everybody to have the medical now. They're going to go down this route of, you don't have to have the big super duper one, but you need an ENG one, which for those of you, it's the light medical. Make sure,
Is that the one that you guys got for being on as long as you are? Right.
Yeah. And which we've had before anyway, because if you work for Holland America and people like that in Brazil, you have to have the ENG one and be on the cruise. So some entertainers will know that, but some won't be aware. But I think be prepared that these last for 2 years. They're about £100 each, but you're going to be prepared that you're going to have them and going to have a COVID test and comfort. I mean, our initial contract was 10 weeks. So, and when we arrived at the ship, we had to do quarantine, which they said it was going to be for 7 days. And then the Italian government said, no, everyone's got to do 2 weeks. So we got on and sat in our room for 2 weeks.
Wow. And this would, do you think, be for anybody who,
Yeah.
any
Well,
entertainer that's going to come on
yeah.
the, in this case anyway, in your case, you go on the ship, even if your contract was for 1 month, you're saying that if once you get on the ship, they're making absolutely positive, even though you've had a test, absolutely positive that you haven't got it, you're going to isolate in your room for 2 weeks.
I think it will change slightly when they relax the Schengen and have the non-Schengen ones, because obviously they can just sign us on the passenger list. And what they probably would do was we'd come in, get off in Genoa, get back on in Rome or something, and they'd move the paperwork to make it work, so we're not on for a massive.
Right, because that is an important thing, isn't it? Because the idea of, I mean, I was originally thinking, do I want to be on a ship for 3 months, for 2 months? I could. I mean, I've done it before for longer. It was a great experience, actually, a very different experience. But I thought I'd rather go on the ship for like a month. A month would be nice. Fly out, be on for a month.
I
But
think
if we're going to have to quarantine on the ship for 2 weeks, then it doesn't make any sense, does it, for the cruise line to have us out, paying us, because you're still being paid, right, to sit in your room.
Yeah. I mean, I think once they relax the ruling slightly of the travel ban, isolation, so you can come, I think we'll be fine. Like the passengers, they don't have to go into quarantine for 2 weeks to come for a week's cruise.
Yeah.
I think but if they sign in you on as a crew member, you would be on for a longer time. But
again, my understanding is if you are on for a month longer, I mean, even pre-COVID, if you're on for longer than a month, you're signing on as crew. So if you're signing on as crew, we think that, you'll need the medical, and you may then, that may need this longer isolation.
Yeah,
Quarantine.
maybe. Yeah. So, they looked after us. It was great. It was a bit of a shock to the system, but the biggest shock.
Hang on a minute. If I had talked to you 10 days into your 2-week quarantine, would you have been so perky about it then?
Probably not.
How was the food, Karl?
The food was awful. The food was terrible. In fact, we had
no sushi.
No. Oh no.
God.
No, you got.
Were the cocktails cold enough?
There was no cocktails, mate. You were lucky if you got it. There was no alcohol. You got a can of water, maybe a can of juice. You had a foil tray delivered to your room, and in it they had rice, maybe some scrambled egg, and something else. I can not recommend enough. Do not have rice for breakfast. It is not going to catch on. and to be fair, after 2 weeks of having rice with everything, we haven't touched it since.
But I bet you all lost a bit of weight. I mean,
yeah, it's not too bad. Yeah, it's amazing. Fortunately, what they did was to give the cruise line their due. I rang the cruise director and said, "Listen, we need fruit, we need this, that, and the other," and they just sent up fruits and stuff for us, and they unlocked the internet, so they gave us free internet.
That's important.
And they unlocked all the TV channels and movie channels, because obviously we live in a guest area, so they unlocked everything. We were on when there was no passengers. We had no passengers on board.
Right.
Just for all the entertainers, for all of the guys who are established, just be prepared that you will have to come on and do longer contracts. You can do your show 2, 3, 4, but you'll be prepared to do it maybe 4 or 5 times in the week. I think I get the feeling we might have to go in for like 4 cruises.
Yeah, to be honest, I actually would prefer that, and I've always wondered why they've not done that anyway. It's never made any sense to me why they fly us. I mean, it's fine, but why are they flying us all over the place? Why not just keep us on board for a month or 2?
Well, that's it. So we'll be prepared for that. And also, on the other side of it, it is incredibly safe. I mean, I've got that. I mean, this is every day you get new masks twice a day sent to your room.
Wow, that's great.
And you've got all your bits and pieces. So, I mean, they are really, really looking after it. And the ship is spotless.
I'm so grateful for you talking to me today and for sharing all this stuff, because I mean you're there right now, and it's fascinating to hear how it's going to work. It's a little peek into all of our futures.
It is, and I think until the vaccine comes, this is how it's going to be. So
And massive congratulations and kudos to you for getting the gig and for being there.
Oh, it came kind of out the blue. Said, "Can you do? We're starting this one," and off you go. It was like, oh. Okay, the biggest shock though, Gary, and all of you will have to be prepared for this. After walking off stage in March in New Zealand, and then we got home and everything was locked down. Okay, we've been practicing and stuff and that, and then we had a couple of little rehearsals, but when it's showtime, God help you, because you know you're not match fit.
What I'm worried about is getting in my suit. The voice will be fine. It's getting my trousers on.
Quarantine, sort it out, rice for breakfast.
Actually, it all works out, doesn't it?
It works out fine. Yeah.
Great to talk to you, Karl. Lots of love, and enjoy the rest of your contract. Enjoy the music. Lucky you.
And you, mate. See you soon.